How come Americans still suffer the horrible healthcare? Why don't they / you protest? Same thing as a lot of our issues, a clusterfuck of incompetence, sabotage from every direction, political party divisions that make it near impossible for anything productive to happen, and after all that we still need to figure out how to make a system that works for the entire country. A lot of us don't protest because we don't have the time, energy, or resources. Lots of us are just fine with how things are. Lots accept that it's crappy, but don't want to make things worse. It's a huge mess. America has too many problems, too many divisions, too much confusion, and is just too tired to do much about it. We're one of the strongest countries on the planet, but we're barely holding ourselves together, let alone fixing things like healthcare. Do you mean expensive healthcare? I'm not sure if US healthcare is particularly horrible, but it might be very expensive. Stuff like ambulance rides, childbirth, and CAT scans might be free in most European countries, but I'm quite sure that the level of quality, once you do receive the service, is pretty much the same as in the US. I am in the US insurance industry, have been for the last 25 years. I don't work for an insurance company presently. Let's all agree that the problem is complicated here. There are a number of factors contributing to the mess. It costs so much money here to go to medical school. Doctors want to specialize in something that will earn a lot of money. We have many more specialists than primary doctors, PCP. Our remote areas are underserved, not enough PCPs, and they don't earn much with customers who can't pay. Malpractice insurance is expensive, another cost contributor. We are a culture that tends to sue for mistakes. Doctors are afraid to get sued, so they practice defensive medicine. Your kid hits their head, you think they need a CT scan. Doctor doesn't think it's necessary, but wonder if there is an injury? Better do a CT scan to be sure. No skin off his back. Drug companies are allowed to advertise, that increases the cost. Case in point, I distinctly recall my husband attending a class about a dozen or so years ago. He works in the ED, that they were not treating pain effectively, must give more medication. Recently he attended a class because there will be a new drug dispensing system to combat the opioid epidemic. No more paper prescriptions because people forge them and also go from ED to ED to get their pain medication. We are a culture that wants what we want and can't wait a damn second for it. If we grew up with socialized medicine, we could wait a week or month or several months for an elective procedure, but here in the US? No way. If we can't get that MRI tomorrow, we go to the ED and get it done right away. We hear fear-mongering stories about the waits for surgeries and testing in Canada and the UK. Medicare for all? Medicare is great, seriously, accepted by most doctors and hospitals, low deductibles, it's for almost everything. It's wonderful, but you know what? It's expensive. Many people get much more out of the system than they put in. What are my kids going to do when it runs out of money? Medicare reimbursement rates to doctors and hospitals are low and riddled with bureaucratic paperwork. Let me say that again. The reimbursement to providers is very low. Who makes up the difference? The people in private insurance get charged more to make up the profits for hospitals and doctors. Hospitals are supposed to be non-profit, but here they advertise. That's right. Hospitals advertise to their new equipment, newly renovated birthing rooms, new cancer treatments. Some states do have a public health plan for low-income people. It's a mess. Our state is 6 to 12 months behind on payments to providers. We don't have money to fund the system. Finally, to pay for any public health plan, we will all have to pay more in taxes. Tax is an extremely dirty word in the US. If any politician is going to be truthful, they will have to come out and say they will raise taxes, and not just on the rich. Everyone will have to pay, and that is the kiss of death to any politician. Insurance companies lobby hard against anything that hurts their bottom line. They need to answer to shareholders. There are not that many insurance companies left serving the individual market. Less competition means higher prices for the consumer. This is a small market share, though. Most people get their insurance through their employer. We get insurance through our employer. How crazy is that when you think about it? Insurance is so complicated. I spend most of my time explaining. People don't typically understand until they use it. There is so much more not even listed here. Many of us are very aware that this is a major issue, and we plan to vote accordingly. This issue is largely what brought Obama into office, as it was his big campaign promise. The problem is money in politics. Due to legal donations from big pharma and health insurance companies, corporate-friendly politicians on both sides, but primarily Repubs, watered down Obamacare to make it complicated and not go far enough to challenge private health insurance. On top of this, Fox News and other major media outlets who also take money from big health actively lie to the public that they will lose their health care if the government is responsible for providing it. This is effective for some people. For many people, we see through the bullshit and won't settle for less anymore. It's time the US address this issue the way almost every other industrialized nation has. This is why the Dem Party is starting to swing further left now. Those centrist, really center-right, politicians in that party still fight against it. They are effectively brainwashed. The Republican voters have been so manipulated and radicalized that they continuously vote against all of their own best interests, and the corrupt elites that profit from it laugh at them to their applause. Protests are ignored, especially in a country that large it won't achieve anything. They could strike, but in the paycheck-to-paycheck culture with low workers' rights and unions vilified and often outlawed, everyone is too afraid to lose their jobs. They should strike for their rights, it's just not considered often in their culture. Because capitalism produces apathy. Not only do we lack affordable healthcare, but our jobs are low-paying and precarious. The safety net in our country has been slowly dismantled since the 1970s in order to reallocate public funds into the pockets of the 1%. We are tired, we are hopeless, we are apathetic. Capitalism, it all has nothing to do with it. We have a mixed economy. The socialized healthcare euros also have a mixed economy. They participate in markets just like us. It's not like Germany is known for being a nation of super empathetic humans. They just see the sense of social healthcare that many Americans reject for literally just their ideological sports team. Healthcare is the most worthwhile use of our public funds bar none. Because the American way of thinking is very us versus them. Basically, a lot of older voters fear that poor/brown/illegal/drug-using/non-Christian/ whatever else they can imagine, people will use up resources and will not leave any for hard-working Christians like themselves. When Obamacare was being proposed, you had certain companies fueling the fire saying if they get free healthcare, the government will take away yours. And then you'll both have the same? It terrified a lot of people who had good jobs with good healthcare. The kicker is that once someone climbs out of the desperate need for social programs, they become against them. If I worked hard and got a good job with good insurance, then I deserve this hospital. All those other people who didn't get so lucky did not work for it and therefore do not deserve. Not just us versus them, but extreme short-sightedness and refusing to take into consideration the worst possible scenarios. Or even some common, but very unfortunate scenarios. For instance, let's say you have excellent health insurance through your employer. It covers medical, dental, and vision. But you get cancer. To say that cancer is expensive is a colossal understatement. Even with insurance, chances are you'll end up filing for medical bankruptcy.